Hello and a very good afternoon to everyone. I am Gaurav Dubey, co-founder of Logistics Insider Media, and I am delighted to welcome you all to this one of its kind virtual freewheeling chat session between a logistics service user and a supply chain technology provider about some of the most practical challenges and scenarios in modern supply chains. So, the theme of today's session is empowering supply chains through intelligent logistics, and the session is powered by Pando. The supply chain industry has been evolving at a pace which is unprecedented. With intelligent logistics as its support system, the supply chain ecosystem has been constantly innovating and setting new benchmarks that once seemed like a distant dream. When speaking about intelligent logistics, words like digital technology and automation are the one that we mostly hear. But with this freewheeling session, we bring a fresh perspective on intelligent logistics for our audience. A more practical one that resonates with almost every supply chain professional. With that, let me call upon the screen both of our speakers of today's freewheeling discussion. First, I would like to invite Mr. Deepak Sharma, who is head logistics at Dabur and who will be representing the service user side in today's discussion.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good
I
afternoon,
welcome
Gaurav.
you today in the session, Deepak sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Gaurav. It's my
Yeah.
pleasure to be there in this platform.
Yes. So on the other side of the spectrum, we have Mr. Parvesh Ghai, who is Chief Revenue Officer APAC at Pando, who will represent the service providers side. So Mr. Parvesh is from the Pando, and he is from the supply chain technology provider side. So, I welcome you, Parvesh sir, on board.
Hi Gaurav, good to be here. Hi, good afternoon everyone.
Yes. So, I welcome both of you today to this amazing session, and I'm very sure that your thoughts and ideas with each of our viewers will definitely bring a lot of value to today's session. Just to give an oversight to our viewers, the speakers will aim to drive the conversation in a way that derives meaningful and actionable insights. So, we'll also be doing audience Q&A towards the end of the session. The timing of this session is for 30 minutes, and towards the end of 15 minutes, we'll be doing a Q&A session. So please feel free to drop your questions here in the comment section. So now, without any further ado, I would request our expert speakers to kick off the session, and over to you both. So, Pavesa, I request you to take this ahead now.
Thanks Gaurav. Deepak, firstly, thank you and really appreciate you joining us in this session. I think it will be great for our viewers to be able to get good insights from the size, scale, and the complexity that Dabur as an organization manages. And you and your teams are at the center of, delivering customer experience through intelligent logistics, in some of these times of disruption, as we call it as, right? So it will be very, very interesting. Thank you for joining us. Let me give a brief context to our listeners. As we all know, that COVID pandemic has created a significant stress for all the companies across industries globally. And I believe that impact of this will likely to continue for a few more years to come, right? Even if we would have come out of the pandemic cycle. CPG companies in particular, we have seen that face a very challenging environment with supply side disruption on one side and huge demand volatility on the other side, right? Business continues to remain under pressure to be able to ensure that products get delivered to the customers in a timely way, as well as the challenge to try and keep their employees safe and get the manufacturing operations going, right? What we have seen is that leading CPG companies are seeing the logistics execution as a great opportunity to transform customer experience more than any other industry, ensuring that the products reach the customer that is of the utmost importance to the CPG industry. And this also has a huge implication on all aspects of supply chain, whether it's around distribution, logistics, transportation, and the warehousing, right? At a time when the cost control is extremely critical, a reimagination of logistics and transportation can deliver what we call it as resilience and efficient supply chains, which businesses need for the next normal. And if the organizations and the leaders are ready to make smart investments to leverage technology, the disruptions which can create a big challenge in the supply chain could be taken care of and could be addressed, right? So, with that context, let me just try to ask Deepak to give us a little bit of a background around Dabur's supply chain network, just to understand what is the size, scale, complexity of Dabur's overall logistics and supply chain network that as an organization, as a team, Deepak, that you and your teams are required to encounter, over last say many years, but in these challenging time of last 18 months or so. I think it will be good for our viewers to be able to get some bit of insights from you.
Yeah, so thanks, Parvesh. Thank you so much for setting up the context, and thanks for passing on the questions. So let me tell you that Dabur logistics, if you're talking about the logistics and as well as the supply chain, is quite complex at Dabur. Basically, we deal in something close to 2,000 odds number of SKUs across, and I think we are the organization which service largest number of distributor in the country. And looking at the size of the organization, we could say that servicing the largest number of distributor with a sizable amount of business is quite complex when you have limited production house and you have to cover all the geographies in the country, and that too with a small scale of ticket size of the shipment. It becomes very challenging for any of the supply chain professional. And I think at Dabur, we have been facing the challenges during the pandemic. And at this point in time, I think we have learned a lot. And with that learning, I think we could say that we are moving through a phase where we could say that we are at a sustainable supply chain leaders in the organization.
Sure. Very interesting. Thanks, Deepak. So I think it takes us nicely to the question saying that help us to understand, over last 18 months as the pandemic first wave and the second wave spread in the country, right? What changed from the logistics transportation standpoint in a post-pandemic world? And how did Dabur manage to undergo a change or a transformation to be able to minimize the disruption in the way you could ensure that the products could get delivered in a timely way without the whole customer experience getting impacted?
Yeah, so how the world of supply chain is impacted due to COVID is a that there is a frequent change in the demand, and that is every company has witnessed that level of change and shift in the demand. And of course that led to disruption in the supply chain. That's number one. And people have adopted a different model, different way of assessing the demand. We at Dabur also we reviewed our demand beyond SNOP. So when we do the SNOP every month, it is not helpful to review your demand. Hence, you've got to review your demand at every week or at every day basis. You have to also categorize how your SKU, your category behaves in the market, and that's where you have to have a contextual bucket of SKU, and there the focus is more to review your demand. So in short, I could say that there is a frequent review of the demand. That's one. B, how the supply chain has changed is the people are giving more focus on business continuity plan. So BCP is very, very important at this point in time, where you have to review your business continuity plan. And the third one is the way of working, how we used to work and now how we have learned working in a new environment. Earlier, we used to have longer meeting in a face-to-face basis. Now we have learned to work together over a Teams call or using the technology. Is something that people have adopted that level of working. So these are the things which has changed. At the same time, the disruption has basically, if you talk about supply chain, it has impacted your logistics, it has impacted your demand, it has impacted your distribution. So Dabur also has been impacted with such disruption in logistics. I see that 2020 March and or maybe early April we were struggling to have the seamless supply to our CFAs from our factories. The truck availability was quite challenging, and of course, we had to find a different way to see that we come out with that challenge. There were guidelines were not pretty clear from the government. The movement were something truck movement were restricted. You were not very clear whether you will be able to move the truck from one geography to another geography. The warehouse opening of the warehouse were not permitted. So, Parvesh, the disruption was at all corner of the supply chain. And at Dabur, I think what we did differently is that we have engaged with fleet owners as far as the logistics is concerned, or as far as the transportation is concerned. So we basically moved out from traditional way of sourcing the truck. The reliance was more on fleet owner. We engaged with them. We did some direct dispatches in terms of reducing the lead time, in terms of bringing less dependency on the trucker. We also did some other mode of transportation. The most challenging part was that trucks were available, but drivers were not available. So of course you have to give the shelter to driver. Dabur has ensured that at CFA they were given the right shelter, food, and all other things. So these things have helped organization to achieve its goals, and we have also adopted some of the new business model, Parvesh. We had gone direct to consumer, we had gone direct to retailer. We have reduced our lead time by doing that. We were more closer to the market, and I think so is the case with many of other organization also. So that's where I think it was helpful for us to come out from that challenge. At the same time, it was important for us to review the demand at a very frequent level. So we say that we used to do the rapid SNOP. We call it as a rapid SNOP, where every week we used to meet and review our demand. Our availability used to be reviewed every day. Twice in a day we used to review our availability. So that's where I think it has helped us to basically support the sales ecosystem.
Got it. Quite interesting. So what you're saying is that you changed the frequency to be able to review the demand and started looking at a much more closer look at the demand and
Right,
shifted to BCPs as well as try to address all of those supply
right.
side challenges, in terms of ensuring availability of transport, ensuring the care to be given to the drivers so that they are in good health, so that the disruption doesn't happen. And then you also spoke about you explore to evolve the business models, right, which is trying to reach out direct to consumer, etc. Can you just give us some idea in terms of how easy was this shift and how did it help the overall business trying to evolve with these new business models in a very disruptive kind of environment where both demand and supply was very, very volatile?
So it was not pretty easy, and it did not come just like that. The situation was so that you have to find the way to service the market, right? Given the constraint in terms of availability of the resources, in terms of truck availability, in terms of manpower constraint. So you have got to find a way how you're going to service the market. At the same time, the lead time, something which has increased at that point in time, and that has created a lot of challenge in the logistics sector. So going direct to consumer, direct to retailer, is that it is not only reduced your lead time, but at the same time it has also reduced your cost. At the same time, when you are in a pandemic situation, probably people or organization don't give that much of importance to the cost, and that focus on the cost will not be so high. But we
True.
at Dabur have never shifted our focus from the cost, and we say that be it the pandemic, but of course you go to drive your cost efficiency programs. And that's where it came to us that this model is something which is giving us the benefit not only in terms of service but also in terms of cost. We identified the geographies where there are larger set of distributors, there are larger set of demand cluster, and where we can go direct to those retailers. At the same time, the situation was so that even your distributors or your stockists were not so prepared. They were not having that level of infrastructure to support the logistics. So they were also facing the problem to servicing their retailers. They did not have the right set of transportation with them. Even they were not allowed to open their stock points, and hence it was constrained at their level also. So since they were not operational, we wanted our product to go into the market, and I think so is the case with many of the organization, Pravesh. And hence we adopted this technology, this business model in fact. And this was quite successful, and this is the reality today. I think we have been doing this handsomely well. Same is the case
Sure.
with the direct to consumers also. There are set of SKUs which we wanted to go to the market. And apart from, it is not only that you need a commercial sale. There are set of SKU which were required in the market to the consumer. We are an Ayurvedic organization also. We support the health of people. So basically, there were some set of products that was to made available to the consumer who were in need to have that. For example, Giloy, Chawnpra, something which bring your immune system, and hence we thought that it would be our duty, it is our moral duty also to reach out to the consumer and see that our products are available to them. And that's where direct to consumer came into the picture.
Sure, got it. Interesting. So one quick question, Deepak. What we have seen is that when you do a large, a CPG company like Dabur, when you do your transportation logistics of the entire supply chain to be able to reach the nook and corners of a diverse country like India, uh, it requires a fairly vast and stable supply chain and a transportation network, right? When you have to, in a disruptive times, when you have to look at trying to do direct to consumer or direct to retailers, I'm sure it puts a significantly huge pressure on the transportation logistics and transportation network that you have, right? And with constraints on availability of vehicles or drivers, how did you manage to overcome the additional constraints of your D2C or D2R, direct to retailers or direct to consumer kind of business models? What were the challenges, and how do you plan to overcome those challenges, given that I'm sure it would have put in a huge pressure or demand on the logistics and the transportation side?
So, Pravesh, we were actually, I think we leveraged the situation basically. So, if you see, direct to consumer model is such that the shipment size is 1 kg, half kg, 250 gram, 5 kg, something like that.
It's smaller
You know,
shipments. Yeah.
it's a smaller shipment. And how we leveraged the logistics is that at that point in time, the Zomato, the Swiggy, the Denjo, so their fleet were idle basically. So we got into the contract with them and we said that we would be giving you the business and we would use your fleet and your infrastructure to reach out to our consumer. And that's where I think it helped us to go there. Though we were not prepared for D2C at that point in time, but at the same time, when you explore into the market, you see the way, you find the way. And I think that's where I think those were the fleets which we used. There were bikers which were idle at that point in time, and we could make best use of the situation at that point in time. And over a period of time, your system becomes mature. Then, of course, you try to develop your own infrastructure. But initially it was tough, but at the same time, when we thought that there was some amount of fleet which were idle, some amount of infrastructure which were idle, we could make best use of that. As far as the long haul transportation as far as the D2 are concerned, of course, we engaged with some of the startups with a small fleet, with a small size of trucks, and with adoption of some amount of technology also. I think it was helpful for Dabur to get into the D2R model.
Interesting. Anyway, in a country like India, we work in an environment where I believe the whole logistics and transportation is quite inefficient, with availability of huge capacity and demand, in imbalance of capacity and demand. Right. I still believe that in a country like India, the utilization of capacity is only to the extent of 60 to 70%, and technology could surely play a big role to be able to bring in a significant optimization there. As you move into future, we still don't know whether third wave is around the corner or not. Hopefully, it's not. Uh, do you think the new business models that you have evolved with, whether it's direct to consumer or direct to retailers, do you think these business models will endure, let's say, in a post-pandemic kind of environment, as and when we get there?
It's helpful. I think it's reality, Parvesh. If you look at right now, I think most of the organization has adopted these models, and these models are helping organization to save some amount of cost for them, reduce the lead time. So it is an efficient way of doing the distribution. Somewhere where you have the larger geography and you have the larger demand cluster. Basically, these are the model which is helpful for the organization. In my opinion, that's going to be the future going forward for some set of demand cluster where you sell high and your saliency is quite high. So I think we are doing pretty well at this point in time.
Okay, pretty interesting. Got it. I think there is a question I'm saying while we are talking, Deepak. There is a question from the audience. Let me just pick it up. And the question is very interesting, and that's why I decided to pick it up. It says that typically over the last 6 months to 1 year, we have seen there is a significant increase in the fuel cost, right? And in a country like India, where diesel powers the larger transportation and logistics, right? And I'm sure logistics cost is a key contributor to the overall distribution cost for a company like Dabur. With fuel prices gone up significantly over, say, last 6 months or so, how is Dabur trying to address this issue of optimizing the cost of logistics transportation in an environment where your fuel cost has gone up at least by double digit?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and I think that's the challenge right now. But what how we are addressing is, let me tell you, there are different ways to look at it. A, that your freight cost per lane might go high if you go to a market and source the truck. But when you have a commitment with certain fleet owners who owns the truck, and when you do the industrial collaboration where you are able to provide the backhaul to the same transporter, then probably your freight cost might get reduced. So you will have to mitigate those fuel escalation by mean of doing the reverse logistics with some of the by doing some industrial collaboration, or maybe within your organization you can map your inbound versus outbound and see if you can bring the efficiency there. And that is where in Dabur also our focus is pretty clear, that if we are choosing a lane, then we also focus that how do we bring the truck back loaded to our origin point. Whether we have some shipment available with us in house, or we might have to reach out to our friends in the industry. That's the one area to look at it. The second one is that you should do the truck upsizing projects. So more you use the bigger truck, probably your per case or per kg cost comes down. So you will have to drive those efficiency projects. So if I use 15 empty truck, I would not use 15 empty truck if my cost goes high, and if I have a shipment size higher than 15 empty, then I will shift to 18 empty or 20 empty or maybe 30 empty. Uh, in Dabur, the one unique thing what we did is that we have engaged with some of the fleet owner and who has invested for us in designing some of the trucks that we call it as a double decker truck. So
Got it.
basically, one truck has two layer. So wherever you have restriction on stacking norm, probably for our juices, we are not able to stack more than six stack height, and the truck is not even half loaded. So hence, to use the carrying capacity of the truck, we have developed such trucks, double decker truck, that has also helped us in terms of carrying more load with less price. So you have to look at that level. At the same time, we also, when we engage with the transporter, we talk to them with should cost model and see how the cost behaves. We talk to them at a cost sheet level. So our team is also pretty trained on this, and I think that's where our focus is more on bringing the logistics cost down. We also drive our loadability, so the truck should be loaded. I think so. Aim is that we should reach to 99% loadability, and I think the market industry norm is that people who use 90%, 95% truck loadability is quite decent, and I think we are better than market benchmark, and we are basically driving this project also.
Sure.
Uh,
Understand.
we also assess. So since you touched upon this point, and this is very interesting because one of the audiences asked this question, you have to look at your portfolio, your product portfolio, and see what kind of truck is required for which product portfolio. It is very important for larger organization to understand that, and accordingly you should make your logistics arrangement. And I think that's where I think Dabur has been doing decent work in terms of bringing the cost under control.
Understood. Got it. Quite interesting perspective, Deepak. So I think what we have seen is that out of our experience of the customers who are on the Pando network, you are absolutely right. 95% load utilization benchmark is still cost inefficient, right? The organizations typically who are at least in 98% range, both from weight and volume perspective, are at least able to say that they run a very efficient logistics transportation from the cost perspective overall, right? Deepak, you spoke about something very interesting, which is trying to do the backfills or the reverse logistics, right? Which is sort of becoming a norm, right? Within the industry or cross industry collaboration, so that the vehicles don't travel without optimal load into it, and the cost could be shared both ways through reverse logistics framework. As an organization, have you ever explored the possibility of trying to collaborate with other CPG companies who are in a similar kind of area that your manufacturing locations are, for the purpose of a forward logistics to try and optimize and share the cost, etc.? Any thoughts on that? I know it might be good to say for a discussion, but when it comes to executing on ground, there are a lot of operational challenges, right? In terms of ensuring that even if you have a plan, how do you collaborate for that plan to become real? How do you ensure that the timing of loading, unloading, alignment, and the sequencing of where does the material get picked up or dropped first or subsequently, those kind of challenges come into play? So do you see the forward logistics across multiple enterprises to try and leverage, collaborate each other to be able to optimally reduce the logistics transportation cost could be one innovation, this aspect of your business could look at in the logistics side?
Yeah, so very interesting, Parvesh. I think people are open for this. I think if you talk to any industry, any logistics manager in any company, and they will tell you that there are challenges of how do you sequence your loading, how do you ensure that there should not be any detention or there should not be any gap, so that the shipment is serviced at the right time. The adoption of the technology is very very important here. Probably the transport management system or dock management system or in plant logistics system helps to do that. I think India has not become that mature as far as the technology in logistics is concerned, and probably I think people have started talking about that technology. Now I think given the fact that pandemic is around, now the adoption of the technology has become more fast. Now people try doing experiment with the technology without even having a business case. Earlier there used to be a time when we used to talk to some of the startups or maybe some of the companies. We used to have a business case and we used to say that does this make commercial sense for us to adopt this technology. But right now I think organizations are ready to try those technology. without even having a business case. So that's a kind of experiment that people used to do, are trying to do it, and that's a good sign. Let me tell you, specifically on the logistics sector. I think in Dabur also we are engaged with some of the startups, though it is at a very initial stage. But basically, in terms of AI based technology or maybe ML based technology, we are also trying to do something out of that. And that's where it would be very helpful to try and do forward logistics collaboration.
So apart from
There's
reverse or
long
forward
way to go,
logistics,
Parvesh, long way to go. I think till the time you have a clarity that how much it would be beneficial for the organization. I think reverse logistics is something that one side I send the truck, other side the other company sends the truck.
it is
It
easy and
makes
straightforward.
sense both way. It makes sense. But if
Sure.
you talk about forward logistics, obviously you have to go long way here.
Sure, understand. Since you spoke about technology, Deepak, and I'm sure Dabur as a fairly large enterprise, I'm sure will be using quite a bit of uh, strong tools and underlying platforms. Can you give us some examples? Typically, keeping in mind what has happened over the last 18 odd months with disruption led by pandemics, uh, how did you leverage technology, or how do you plan to leverage technology to minimize the impact of disruption in the way logistics transportation gets executed in Dabur?
So the biggest disruption, A, is your demand fluctuations. B, your availability of resources. Right. So I will talk about B first. Though I've spoken more on demand fluctuation. On manpower resources, the technology how it helps us is that we have engaged with some of the startups to help us doing some robotic based order processing, or maybe invoicing. So probably your workload get reduced when you have to process a large amount of orders, and that is basically depending on a person to do that. Now there are technology available in the market. The bots can do same thing as SAP, rather than you spending a lot of time on your resources. So that's where it is helping us, and I think we are trying that technology. It is under a trial phase, and for our order processing system we have centralized that, and it is quite efficient at this point in time with the use of
Can
technology.
you elaborate what specifically with the bots you are doing to make the order execution much more faster or efficient? Can you
So
just
what
maybe elaborate a
human
little bit? Yeah.
so let's say for you have to build something for channels, maybe modern trade, e-com, or all other channel. One person has to receive the purchase order from the customer, then validate the purchase order, the cost, the MRPs, availability, shelf life, all other things that you have got to do it. This at this point in time people do it pretty manually, right? And with artificial intelligence, or maybe some amount of programming, your robots can do that within a second. And that's where I think it is very helpful to fasten your order processing system without having so much of manpower, right? And
Sure.
that's where I think we have been trying this technology for past couple of months, and it's at a stage where we would be rolling it out, and that's pretty interesting. At the same time, I think SAM can be adopted as far as your warehousing is concerned, where you go to do the invoicing manually. Somebody has to do all the inputs, give all the inputs in SAP system, rather than one person giving those inputs. A bot can do all other things, right? So it's very helpful for us, and this is one of the example. I can give you the other example on availability. As I said, that we are reviewing our demand, and basically we are adopting some technology. We are using some tools to help us assessing our demands. That's how it is,
Sure.
Parvez.
Got it. Got it. Quite interesting. So, going back to one key topic, right? I think all of this disruption is largely because there is a volatility in demand and there is a disruption on the supply side, right? Given the limitations of manufacturing operations, availability of people or subcontractors, etc. Apart from bringing in the aspect you said that you very frequently review the demand, are there any other mechanisms that you have established that you read the demand signals much more strongly, apart from just improving the frequency of reviewing the demand, right? So that you have a so that you are in a position to be able to establish some bit of predictability in the demand environment, and then you are in a position to be able to get the supply aligned in line with the demand. So how do you bring that predictability to be able to read the demand signals?
So one, as I talked about, reviewing the demand very frequently within
Correct.
the rapid SNOP. That's one area. Apart from that, how do you do your planning? So a that we have shifted, or most of the organization must have shifted from primary demand per primary planning, per primary based sale planning to the secondary based sale planning, right? So we have also adopted the same thing. So it has given us the realistic demand in the market. So every day what is being sold is something that comes back to us. So a secondary based planning is also quite helpful for us. And at the same time, as I told you, that we are working with some of the technology, AI and ML based technology with some of the startups that also can help us in assessing the real time demand from the market. But yes, I know it's pretty challenging, and it has used disruption on the supply chain. Basically your demand fluctuate, and of course such shifts is something which basically is not very easy for supply chain to counter that. And we have also faced some amount of challenges during the pandemic, but we used to review our availability also. We used to review, there are some set of SKUs which we defined in a particular bucket, and I think the more focus on the that level of SKUs, and then probably assessing the demand is quite helpful in our SNOP system. But moving beyond SNOP is quite helpful.
Sure, got it. I think quite interesting. So if I have to just come to the technology part, Deepak, would you want to call out, while we discuss a little bit of reverse or forward logistics kind of areas, right? Or some of those bot-based order execution, validation, and efficient execution, right? Would you want to highlight for our viewers any such innovations in future where technology can bring in or play a significant role to be able to transform the entire logistics execution and transform the whole customer experience, whether it is your general trade from logistics standpoint, or some of the new channels around direct to retailer or the direct to consumer that you're trying to come in? It'll be good to see if there'll be a wish list of some bit of technology led innovations, which can bring in a transformation on the logistics execution side.
Yeah, so we are working with one of the startup. The quite interesting thing is that a retailer having a simple WhatsApp can order something on WhatsApp itself, and it comes centrally as a demand, right? And that's where you can see that how you're going to supply it, right? So WhatsApp based technology is available in the market, and for us it is very very interesting. And what we are trying in the market with one of our startup, we are giving more focus there. So
Sure.
I think that level of technology. Secondly, I think the technology lies with Pando also, as far as the transportation system is concerned. We are in a discussion with you guys to help us in bringing technology as far as the secondary distribution is concerned. Let me tell you, during the pandemic system, during the pandemic period, we have helped our distributor to do the distribution basically by taking the support from the Dabur. So we have helped them in terms of arranging some of the logistics by using the modern technology. So there are some delivery partners with whom we have engaged, and the execution was very seamless by using the relevant technology.
Sure, understand. Another key aspect: how did you manage to get the employees, whether it's the direct employees or the contracted employees, whether these were the CFAs, warehouses, or the transportation operations, right? While you did briefly touch upon the context of trying to take care of the drivers, but how did you strike the balance of getting the logistics transportation business going, at the same time trying to keep the employees safe, and not get the health of the employees or the contracted employees getting impacted?
Yeah, so our CFA employees are our asset as far as the logistics is concerned, basically. So those are the real warrior for us who basically, service to our customers. Don't see, I mean, without seeing how many hours that they work. And it is our prime responsibility to take care of those employees. And Dabur has done pretty decent work in terms of securing these guys. We have extended our medical insurance to our employees, CFA employees, so that these guys get motivated and they feel secured. We also, during the tough time, we arrange their stay at warehouse, their foods, and all other things. We have helped them to commute safe. We have arranged our own vehicles to commute them from their home. We have also, basically arranged some of the buses from where the CFA employees can move from their home to our warehouses. So by doing this, I think we were able to protect our employees, and I think we are absolutely very serious about our employees' health, and we are taking care of them.
Okay, perfect. So I think these are quite interesting
So
insights.
I myself connect with my CFA employees once in a while, and if something, maybe if somebody suffers, that's natural probably at this point in time. We connect with their family also, and we extend our all possible support to them.
Sure. I'm sure while the business has to go on, the employee safety, has to be at the center of how a organization like Dabur works, right? Whether these are the direct employees or the extended teams, across your warehouse or the CFA or the transportation ecosystem which work with you. So thank you so much, Deepak. I think these are very, very interesting, good insights. If I have to sum up, basically what you have highlighted to us is today that you have tried to found ways to be able to track the demand much more closely in terms of very frequent demand reviews, catching up the demand signals, trying to align then the supply to be able to read this volatile demand and see how best you service this demand. And then a lot of new business models evolved, rather areas like D2C or the direct to retailers, etc., which evolved. Dabur decided to look at trying to go as close to the consumers, retailers as much possible, so that the disruption could be minimized. You have also tried to explore some of the areas like reverse logistics to be able to collaborate, partner, with the transportation partners to be able to reduce the cost of transportation logistics, and possibly will be even open in future to be able to explore some of the new areas like forward logistics, collaborating with similar organizations, right? Creating layered transportation environment was a very, very interesting innovation example that you gave us, especially to address and take care of the stacking norms, so that the products don't, or the cases don't get damaged and stuff like that. And then you highlighted some of the specific use cases around how did technology come to the rescue in terms of, some bit of those bot based capabilities, or trying to extend WhatsApp kind of platforms to be able to capture the order and try to efficiently get those orders executed, delivered directly by reaching out to the retailer. So as well as trying to keep your, not only business running, but also keeping your employees safe. So quite interesting insight. Thank you so much. I'm sure some of our listeners would have found these insights very, very useful. And Gaurav, I hand it over to you. Deepak, really appreciate you joining us and sharing these insights. And I'm sure people will benefit tremendously, from the insight that you have shared in the discussion today.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you. My message is very clear. I think while we have all the challenges ahead, also maybe third wave comes, but the focus on the cost should always remain on topmost priority. At the same time that we basically have to do an efficient servicing to our customers, being a part of logistics team, but at the same time the focus on cost should always be a priority. And more you
Very
get
true.
into the cost saving project, probably you would find more ways to bring efficiency in terms of service as well.
Very true, sir. So, This has brought us to the end of this delightful and enlightening session. This free flowing, candid conversation has indeed resulted in giving me, and I am sure to our audience as well, a different perspective about intelligent logistics. So I would like to say special thank you to Mr. Deepak and Mr. Parvesh for finding out time to joining this forum and sharing insights on how logistics has changed in the pandemic era, how business successfully transformed its modality and SCM behavior, and overcame all the challenges posed by the pandemic, and very interesting views on intelligent logistics and how the new business models has evolved, and on many other relevant points which are excellently summed up by Parvesh sir. And a very special thanks to our audience who has joined us today for this freewheeling session. And I hope this session turn out fruitful for you guys as well. At the end, I would like to inform our audience that we are also coming up with a very interesting event on a festival supply chain on 9th of September, where supply chain leaders from different domains like Grofers, Puma India, Mama Earth will be joining us as an expert speaker on board, and will share their insights on managing supply chain volatility during the festive seasons. So we have announced this show as well, and you will find more details on our LinkedIn page. So I am Gaurav Dubey signing off now, and I would like to say thank you once again to our audience, to Deepak sir, Parvesh sir for joining us today. So stay tuned and stay ahead with Logistics Insider.
Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks.